I've been asking you guys for some topics. If you have topic suggestions, post on the Instagram page at Daily Comedy News. You can tag any post. I will see it. I get all the notifications. Lane Spurka suggested that I take a look at the Austin comedy scene. That's what I'm going to do today. But before we do that, I've been obsessed with the new king of late night comedy, Greg Gutfeld. I said his name right. Now, I don't include him in the monologue jokes because I'm trying to find his monologue jokes and I don't see them. I did find a Fox News archive that had some transcripts, and I've never seen Gutfeld. It seems like he doesn't do a monologue the way, say, Jimmy Fallon does, but he does try to be humorous. Now, here's the transcript from June 2nd when Greg Gutfeld introduced a guest. And I don't do a Gutfeld impression. I'm tempted to do it as Angry Jerry Seinfeld, but I don't think it works for these particular words. Let me just read the words in my normal voice. Gutfeld said, "Let's welcome tonight's guest. Her last name is Italian for free breadsticks with dinner. Outnumbered co-host Emily Compagno. He's so handsome, even Gitmo detainees were thrilled to see him. Fox and Friend Weekend co-host Pete Hegseth. And she has a degree in English, but always majors in drama. Fox News contributor Kat Timpf. And he never loses a fight unless it's with a ceiling fan. My massive sidekick and host of Nuff Said on Fox Nation, Tyrus." Let's break that apart. Okay, so we have Emily Compagno, and we're going to set her up with her name's Italian for free breadsticks with dinner. That's not funny, man. Pete Hegseth is introduced with, "He's so handsome, even Gitmo detainees were thrilled to see him." What? "And he never loses a fight unless it's with a ceiling fan." Maybe funny. Here's another one, and now that you get how Gutfeld's introductions go, I'll just run through it, so pay attention so you can see how he's setting up the jokes. From May 27th, let's welcome tonight's guest. She puts the rat in radiology, author of the new book Panic Attack, Dr. Nicole Safier. The rat in radiology? What? He told his Uber driver to only make right turns. Right Turn Strategies president Chris Barron. Maybe that's funny. Not from the Spin Doctors. Her favorite vitamins are A, C, and ecstasy. Fox News contributor Kat Timpf. What? And he's a mountain of a man and well worth the climb. My massive sidekick and host of Nuff Said on Fox Nation, Tyrus. I guess Tyrus is pretty tall. Anyway, that's what Gutfeld is up to. The new king of late night. All hail the new king. He is the Johnny Carson of the 2020s. And there's a pandemic and stuff. From Austonia, big laughs. Out-of-towners like Joe Rogan are shaking up Austin's comedy scene. Let's deep dive on the Austin comedy scene. Austonia writes, an influx of talent is both creating an Austin comedy renaissance and dividing the local stand-up community. With big names like Joe Rogan coming to town, it's also shaking up the industry. 11-year Austin comedy vet Chris Tellez said, "There's no denying it. Seems like over 100 comics moved here from New York, LA, and everywhere in between. It's like a funny science experiment." Adam Hartle is the booking manager for Sunset Strip in downtown's Sunset Room. He said, "It's like we're all freshmen in college coming from different cities, making friends and having fun." New to Austin comic and Detroit native Genevieve Clinton said Austin affords opportunities harder to get in saturated markets. After failing to get on the Kill Tony podcast in LA, she succeeded on the first attempt in Austin, which led to her being booked for more work with Tony Hinchcliffe and the Death Squad Secret Show. Secret Show was created by Brian Redban, the man who helped create Kill Tony and the Joe Rogan Experience. Clinton said, "Local shows kept asking me to do sets, too. Some Austinites applaud the fresh blood." Round Rock native and 3-year comedian vet Allison Bajowitz says watching experienced new performers is a masterclass in the art of comedy. The richer landscape also means she can aspire to make her sustainable career. "I loved the Austin scene," she said, "but there wasn't an opportunity to make living money here. Now there's 4 new places and Rogan's opening a room. There's ample stage time that actually can pay you now." So that's a good attitude, right? That there's more clubs, plus you can watch people who might be a little further along in their career and learn from them. That's cool. 4 new venues have been opened or dedicated to comedy in the post-pandemic Austin comedy frenzy. The Creek and the Cave, yeah, they moved from Astoria, New York. That's like the Brooklyn Dodgers of comedy. Vulcan Gas Company, Sunset Strip at the Sunset Room, and the Romo Room in the Domain. Some local comedians aren't feeling the Joe Rogan style of comedy. Brendan K. O'Grady is the co-host of Sure Thing, a weekly comedy showcase running for 9 years and counting. O'Grady says pushing political buttons is no substitute for real act. Andrew Murphy, a 10-year Austin comedy performer and the winner of 2019's Funniest Person in Austin award, says, shock jokes are also lazy. With the comics that I grew up with, no one ever wanted to do normal or generic comedy. If you're not trying new things to be exciting or different, you're not going to make it here. O'Grady said, we need to have standards for what is acceptable behavior for physical safety in the pandemic and how men treat women. Ariel Norman has performed stand-up in Austin since 2015 and co-hosts a monthly heckling welcome show called Off Script. Norman is proud to be a woman on two often male-dominated lineups, and her presence means misogynist jokes from unseasoned strangers don't go unchallenged. She's energized, too, saying, I was so bored here before the pandemic, and now with Joe and everyone moving here and all the clubs opening, I don't have to move to L.A. or New York. I can't wait to see what Joe Rogan does with the new comedy club. Today's Daily Comedy News is brought to you by The Weekly Comedy Thing. What's that? That's the show I host on the Live by Live app. It's kind of like this, but not really. They're starting to really diverge. Like, I can't do a 20-minute deep dive on the Austin comedy scene on The Weekly Comedy Thing, but what I can do is I can play stand-up comedy. So say I did a story about Joe Rogan. Then on the Weekly Comedy Thing, I would play a bit by Joe Rogan. It's on the Live by Live app, Live X Live. The app is free. The show is free. It is called The Weekly Comedy Thing. So if you like comedy and you're like, I wish Johnny Mac would shut up, you would like The Weekly Comedy Thing. From the Cosmic Clash, and they have an editor's note that says, this story on the exploding Austin comedy scene comes from our opinionated and talented friend Robert Dean, who's been immersed in the local comedy scene since it began morphing into the, quote, third coast of comedy last year. Robert Dean's work has appeared in Consequence of Sound, the Austin American Statesman, and countless other national and local publications. Okay, now we've got his creds. The Cosmic Clash writes, if there's any phrase that's ubiquitous to the Austin lexicon, it's, man, you never saw the old Austin. No matter when you move to town, someone who's lived here longer than you will mention this. I should know, I'm guilty of it too. I remember when the East Side still had sketchy, unpaved parking lots, murder warehouses, and garden centers. Now we've got places that sell artisanal tacos dusted with pig eyelashes that equal the cost of a tank of premium gas. The old Austin is a thing of lore. It became canonized this precious time when houses were cheap and Willie Nelson stood on street corners handing out joints to every man, woman, and child. But post-pandemic Austin, whatever this place is evolving into, is an entirely new beast, one with gourmet hot dogs, and it's also funny. When things were normal, we were not a comedy hotspot. Yeah, we've got the tunes, tacos, and pretty girls in sundresses and comedy boots. When it came to comedy, Austin had Cap City, the Moon Tower Comedy Festival, and whatever headliner could carry a big room like the Paramount Theater. We had a few open mics, but those that showed up were usually slugging along an acoustic guitar rather than jokes about poignant emotional pain. Today in Austin, comedy is everywhere. From Creve and Cake to Sunset Strip to Green Jay, Dave Chappelle and Joe Rogan did a string of sold-out shows at Stubbs. Vulcan Gas Company has evolved into Austin's version of the Comedy Store. Rogan recently announced his purchase of the One World Theater. New transplant Trevor Kevelo has been hitting the stages, working the rooms, and booking shows all over town. Trevor says, I believe this is the third coast. What happened to Chicago, everybody? Chicago's got a tremendous comedy scene. Can it be the fourth coast? I digress. I believe it's the third coast. It makes too much sense being in the middle of the country, like Chicago. But this city and how it operates feels uniquely different than either LA or New York. The writer says, we don't care about what's happening in California and we're better off for it, considering this scene is built on folks actually being funny rather than just trying to huff the fumes from agents and managers slithering their way through LA's comedy scene, looking for fresh meat to chop up and serve on basic cable. Trevor says, when I lived in LA, I saw a lot of comics who deserved a shot getting passed over for the wrong reasons. Here, the comics who deserve to rise are getting the love and respect they need, and it's awesome. Big Laugh Comedy CEO Brandon Lewin has been booking shows at Vulcan Gas Company while expanding the brand's reach into San Antonio, saying, comedy has arrived in Texas. A comic can book a tour and hit 5 or 6 cities in the same state, all within driving distance, while making this their home base. I love what we're seeing and experiencing right now. This is the golden age, and we've got a front row seat to seeing Austin turn into a serious comedy destination. And as mentioned earlier in the podcast, the Moon Tower Comedy Festival coming to Austin September 22nd to the 25th. They have some FAQs. One of the FAQs is, which badge is right for me? Well, here are the descriptions. The satellite badge. This is where it starts. The satellite badge gets you into all satellite events during all 4 days of the fest. That's everything the festival has to offer except for the Paramount and Stateside Theater headliners. To get into those shows, you have to purchase a separate ticket. Now, my advice for comedy festivals, If you have access to headliners or, say, Netflix, go see the smaller shows. I always feel like that's where the action is. If you want to treat yourself and see, a headliner, do it, but spend a lot of the time at a comedy festival at the smaller shows. Now, if you get the Warrior Badge, you can catch 5 headliners: Leanne Morgan, Dave Attell, Margaret Cho, Dudley and Bob with Matt's Sideshow. Go see Dave Attell. Attell is fantastic. That'd be my advice there. So I'm modifying. We're going to go see little shows, and then you're going to go see Dave Attell. And that is your comedy news for today. Follow this show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your shows. Instagram at Daily Comedy News. Tag any post and tell me what you would like me to talk about here on the Daily Comedy News Podcast. Appreciate you listening. Back tomorrow.